Hi, I'm Baruni, and I am the director and founder of the Studio Bakers. We're an artist management company in the electronic music space, and I am an artisan.
Hi, I'm Ishita Mehta. I lead the live vertical at Warner Music India, and I am an artisan.
Hi, I'm Aranyaka. I run an artist management consultancy. It's called Off the Wilderness, and I'm an artisan.
Welcome to No Pressure, the podcast where creatives tackle the tough questions about the business, honestly and without the stress. In this episode, we're bringing together three women who are shaping the future of artist management, live music, and cultural experiences from the inside out. Baruni Sharma is the founder of the Studio Bakers, an artist management agency based in Delhi that reps some of the coolest names in the Indian electronic scene. Ishita Mehta leads artist relations for the live business vertical at Warner Music India, where she's building pathways for artists to connect with fans through some unforgettable experiences. Aranyaka Verma is the founder of Off the Wilderness, an artist management agency and culture studio where she also works as a music business consultant focused on long-term strategy and sustainable careers. From managing expectations to redefining success in music, this conversation is about the power of building with purpose and doing it your own way. Somebody who's starting out in artist management in 2025.
I feel like a lot of artist managers that come into the industry don't take this as seriously as a 9 to 5 job.
I genuinely think you should not manage artists that you're fans of.
Let's look at this from the lens of a younger artist. What are the things that you really want to keep in mind to ensure that they are treated fairly?
You just have to make yourself indispensable.
The internet is available, the world is your oyster. Put your music out there, do the A/B testing, and then start going to people to get a stake in your business.
I think pay standards is something I don't think anyone in this industry talks about very openly. Can we establish a baseline of a fresher salary in artist management?
What would be touted as a successful agency, and their starting salaries for a lot of people, I think it's worse now.
Oh, wait, really?
Which is the worst artist that you had to work with?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you the best and the worst. My favorite artist to have managed, Rohan Joshi, Ashish Agya. Rohan has given me like free reign to cancel shows with promoters that were not great people, which is a lot, right? Because you're shutting down like lakhs of business. Worst artist I've ever managed. Amazing. Thank you guys so much for being here today. I have to say, I think this came out of such a like random thought for all of us to be in the same city for the first time in a very long time. But thank you for making the time. A lot of what we're doing here at Artisan is essentially to sort of give perspective on the creative industries. And in order to do that, I would love for all of us to sort of, despite knowing each other to whatever extent, just dial back a little bit and talk a little bit about how we got here into the respective fields that we're in today. Baru, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think I'm the newest over here. I started my company like a year ago, and I've been in the industry, I think, for like 3. I was working for a company that got into like a legal dispute, and the future was pretty uncertain at that time. So I decided to kind of take the leap and start my own thing. Of course, there was like a lot of offers on the table for which I was really grateful. But I think for me, it was just time to kind of be on my own. And actually, at the time, I didn't even know that there were like a lot of other women doing this. And I really thought that there aren't enough of us, because even though we're all here, we're just still not enough of us. So then I decided to start my own company, and luckily I had the backing of my really, really talented roster, and they were like willing to come with me and, you know, work with me, and they continue to. So here I am, 1 year later.
Of course, that's like the origination of Studio Bakers.
Yeah.
But let's go further back. How did you decide to make the leap into artist management? Because like you said, this was not your primary job years ago.
Yeah.
So
I was actually a psychologist, and I used to work at a rehab. But my father, Rami Sharma, he is one of the pioneers of techno and in the country. And growing up, I'd always just listened to him, and we had a nightclub when I was really young. So I don't know, and even back in school, I was very big on like events and organizing, and just very good at logistics and Excel sheets. And I was like, okay, maybe I can do this because it's a mix of all worlds. I'm also a Hindustani classical music singer. I've been trained for 16 years. I went to college for music therapy. But the second I kind of realized that music was an educational curriculum, which was forced on me because I went to New York and I had to relearn Hindustani music and transfer it to like Western music, which I had no clue about. It started putting me off. So I was like, let that be a passion and not something that's, giving me grades. So it was like a perfect combination of my passion. And when mama was like, kya karogi life mein? I was like, kuch to karna hai, psychologist nahi banna hai. There was too much monotony in the same thing, and also financially it was just too long a process for me to. So here then I started my journey with Slick. I'd actually interviewed with like everybody, but I got a really good break and I joined someone on the top, and it was great exposure.
Okay, amazing. I have a lot of questions that I'm going to come back to in a sec. But Ishta, let's hear from you on how you made the pivot, because I think of everyone here, you guys have definitely made the starkest pivots. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I was I was never in the music industry from the beginning. I did my 5 years of law school, which was very hectic. And after that, I ended up in Bombay, City of Dreams, of course. But I ended up in a corporate law firm. So we were doing tax law there. And how much ever boring it was, I'm not sure they listen to it now, so I can say it. It was pretty boring, but I ended up working on a very cool project, which was about reducing the tax rate of musical instruments from 28%, because the government had put it in a luxury tab ratio. So we all know music is not luxury. It's literally
necessity.
It's bread and butter now though. So it was in 2017. So we wanted to bring it down again to 12%. Initially, pre-GST regime, it was between 12 to 14, depending on the states. And we drafted a representation. So I was solely working on that project. Not a lot of people were interested in that because they were more inclined towards tax and indirect tax and a lot of much extensive work in taxation. So I took that up and I really, really enjoyed the research. And when we made the pivot happen, when we got the GST regime down to 18%, it didn't come down to 12 because they were like, dekho, 12 to nahi hoga. 12 to nahi hoga, guys. Oh, we had musical books also, which came down to 5%. Just by a fun fact. And that's when I realized that I want to shift to intellectual property law, because I'd rather be close to art, creative in that way because I'm not enjoying tax law. And then when I shifted to intellectual property law, I was working in a media and entertainment law firm. I realized that the legalities are not making sense because your your Copyright Act only is amended in 2012. Right? It's been 13 years? Yeah, there's nothing happening. And I felt stuck. Now I want to get into the business side of it. I want to tell artists that, these are your rights and you should protect these rights. So that's when an idea popped in my head about artist management. When it popped, I had no idea. I didn't know about any artist management company. I didn't know there can be something like this in the world. But I'm going to tell a fun story here. I was stalking my ex. Okay? I was talking to my ex, and the ex ka present girlfriend reposted a story which had the person's story that was reposted. It's written, looking for an artist manager with no experience. So, ye raha email. So I sent my very well drafted CV, lawyer CV on that email. Dear XYZ, respectfully, whatever, regards, best regards. And this guy's like, whoa, this is such a great email and this is such a great CV. So he called me for a meeting. I was full in my professional setup. He was wearing a white shirt, blue jeans, and his Jordans. And this was obviously
Mr.
Rao
Sinha.
Sinha.
Shout out. Under the radar.
UTR. There was a lot of conversation about UTR also, by the way. The name of the company.
Yeah, so this is, for context, this is way before the company was also formed. Ishita was technically the first employee of UTR. Huh? Apologies.
You can't say technically.
So ये cut कर सकते हैं. So, but no, and we had a great chat. I think for 2 hours we discussed about what can happen in industry, what troubles artists are facing in the legal side of industry as well. And that's how I got into the music industry. It was so fun. I was having the best time of my life. And I was just aloof about everything else. And later, when I got to know the industry, when I got to know the
अच्छा
people...
रुको
क्या
इसको कॉन्टेक्स्ट तो देना दो पहले
क्या context?
तुम तो आगे ही पहुंच गई हो जिंदगी
ये
में
खत्म करें बस ये question. हाँ ठीक है. So this was my story basically, guys. That's how I entered the industry.
Nice.
अनन्या का
So I started off like a good kid and I did engineering in my undergrad. I did instrumentation and control engineering from a top 20 university.
Really?
Yes, I gave the AIEEE. I'm in the top 2% of the country for that year. Yay.
That's wild.
I
Right?
had no idea. I just want to say, like, I was looking at pivots here.
आप engineer हो?
What?
And then I was at Deloitte for 2.5 years as a business tech analyst.
That's
and I was
wild.
constantly working healthcare projects. My first project was a multi-million-dollar module to help for implementing a shared saving system.
Fuck yeah.
Who are you?
Yeah. What happened? Why didn't you tell us this about this before?
I thought you knew. I actually did instrumentation control engineering, right? And
I know
I
what
was
that is.
terrible at. I'm getting to it. Literally every equipment here is instrumentation and control engineering. Everything that he's using inside the studio, it's all instrumentation and control.
Sick dude.
Except when you get to the specialization subjects, it's in 3rd and 4th year of engineering. And I was terrible at instrumentation and control. Like I could do the control bit really well, like make a logic diagram, sure. But as soon as it came to like things like Fourier and Laplace transforms, any engineers watching this will know what that is. But any sort of manipulation of waveforms mathematically was not my jam. And then I decided that, I'm going to take economics or I'm going to do an MBA. That meant that Deloitte was the job I had to land straight out of college. And I did. I only started for one placement, got it, and I was chilling. Went there for 2.5 years. And I was hoping to be put in the media and entertainment accounts. But I was in an offshore office, so I was constantly being put in healthcare. And I was like, cool, we hit the 2.5-year mark. It's time to apply for the MBA. Again, do the right thing. And it was always a given in my family that I'm going to go out and do my master's. So that was negotiated, right? I started researching about programs, and then I came across this master's in music business program at NYU. And the cool thing about it was that it served my needs of being close to music, but it served everybody else's needs because 50% of the classes were at Stern, which is the business school. So I can say that, hey, I've covered everyone's top 20 in India, globally, everything's done, high achiever tick. But now I'm going to go and do a master's in music business, and that's about it. So I moved to New York in 2017, and it was like, cool, this is like I've achieved whatever. My first internship, because you had to do 3 internships as a part of the program. My first internship was at Rock Nation, and they were trying to set up a data department. And my job was to monitor online chatter for the digital marketing and the A&R departments. And also for the management division. So, if Jay-Z messes up on an interview, you're kind of gauging what people are saying about it. I did not have the best experience at Rock Nation, to be honest, but it was a great stepping stone, and obviously it looks good on your resume. It's just a star-studded resume. So you walk out saying, cool, like everything's great. Fast forward to 2019, I graduate. I was working with a couple of boutique marketing firms, working primarily in indie rock. So I did the rollouts for an artist named Cave Town. I was all of Gordy's social media, who's an Australian artist who's actually performed at NH7 in 2015. And literally for 3 months, I was writing all the copy for her social media across everywhere. And then the pandemic happened. I landed my dream job in the pandemic, which was A&R research at Motown Records. Because again, that was also a database role. They needed someone who could code. And I was like, yeah, I know SQL. I was not that great at SQL. I could get by. But you know what? Other people in the industry didn't know it at all. So it worked out in my favor. I had to move back to India. For the first 2 years, I was extremely angry about it. Especially because now I had to work on getting my foot in the door again. And I did because I met Raval. And he was working on Sab Chahiye at that time. He made me listen to it. And I was like, cool, you know what? If you guys let me do the digital marketing rollout and the marketing rollout for this particular album, and if you like it, then let me manage you. And this was not because I wanted to be an artist manager. I did not want to be an artist manager. I used to keep joking in New York saying that, you know what, I'm never going to get into it because I don't want my career to be dependent on someone else's mental health. And you say edgy things like this and you feel cool about yourself, whatever. And I landed in the thick of artist management, guys, and I'm pretty decent at it, I think. And so, fast forward to today, I'm running my own music business consultancy. We've got three or four divisions now, which is music publishing, the talent management division, and music consulting.
Wow.
Can I say two things? I was in New York when you were in New York, so jinx. And I know SQL too.
Jinx, double jinx.
I manage SQL. That's what I
Y'all didn't hear my double jinx joke.
double jinx.
Yeah, good. This should come in this, by the way.
Buy me a Coke.
Okay, but like, now that we have great humor on our podcast here, I kind of want to look at the moment at which you guys have sort of all entered the space, right? So coming back from New York for both of you, you making the pivot from psychology and coming into music, for you to switch from a full corporate consulting world and enter the Indian market industry, for you to go from a huge law firm to the way that the artist management industry runs here. Tell me a little bit about what those initial days were in the context of the Indian landscape, right? Because at the end of the day, we've all talked a little bit in different on different platforms about how it's not exactly the most structured industry, right? So what are the first few roadblocks that you hit? What are the first few things that were just like, whoa, this happens too? Did you have moments like those?
Yeah, for me, when I was with Slick, I was still transitioning from someone else's role to my own, the two artists that I was managing at the time. And of course, that was my first introduction into the entire industry officially. And I think Andrea and Prateek used to call me a jinxed person because every booking that would come to me would get cancelled for the first 2 months. And I was like, what is going on? Am I really bad at this? It just wasn't making sense. But it was just really chaotic. And I think you're being very kind to the industry when you say it's not entirely organized. It is the most disorganized place ever.
I was trying to say some of the controversy.
No, I think anyone who works in it will admit that it's very disorganized. No matter how organized you try to be, there's always so many different factors that, play against you at all times, whether it's industry specific or, just national. Anything that happens, nightlife is the first, or music, entertainment is one of the first segments to get really hit. So yeah, it's been really, of course, it was a lot of learning and a lot of ghosting and a lot of not taking it personally. I'll tell you something, when I used to work at the rehab and I used to be kind of giving therapy to a few of my patients at the time. And of course, they were all addicts and alcoholics. And it's a very, very common thing for people to relapse and come back, right? So I think one of the main reasons I actually left was because I started taking that too personally. I kind of thought that I was not good enough, And the same thing happened here. So imposter syndrome just never went away for like a really long time. But yeah, then I realized it's like the rule of thumb. It's not personal. If you don't have anything to give to the other person, they're not going to find the time to talk to you. It's just, and the same, today we do the same mostly, at least I'm guilty of it. I don't reply to every message that comes to me. So yeah, I think
No, guys, that's not true. We reply to every text message and every email in our inboxes. Of course.
yeah, especially the ones that say, "Hi, ma'am, one job."
For me, it's Raga Bhaiya se mila do.
But yeah, like I think the roadblocks were mostly kind of, for me at least, making it not personal and trying to understand that, it's going to take time for someone to get used to you. It's going to take time for you to build a product that's going to be like indispensable and that people just cannot refute. It's going to take time for you to become a manager that just does not fuck up, does not book the wrong flights, does not, miss out on
PTSD.
payments. But yeah, disorganization, huge roadblock. Of course, different roadblocks starting my own company, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, I mean, I also want to ask you quickly. You were talking a little bit about the financial implication of even being a therapist, right? And when you made that switch, and of course, we'll come to the company side of it later. But when you're just starting out as an artist manager, did you automatically see a huge pay disparity between like being a therapist and being a fresher in the artist management world?
So to be honest, my salary was matched, which is to say I was not making much in psychology at all. Because I was really just a fresher. I had no experience in artist management. So my salary to be matched was very kind. And but yes, I did make my way up really fast financially under Slick. And I also want to give credit where credit is due. Talent was recognized and, it was not unpaid, rather. Yeah, I find it actually kind of very interesting that when it comes to pay in this industry, especially when you're just like a roster-oriented, company, margins are just so low that I'm so guilty of underpaying a lot of my staff because I don't make enough. So how do I pay? Like, I don't make anything. I don't draw a salary. But I want to fairly compensate, but it just, the whole process is just unequal everywhere. So there's no way to kind of take out.
I don't know if you guys are comfortable doing this, but I think pay standards is something I don't think anyone in this industry talks about very openly. Can we like establish a baseline of a fresher salary in artist management? It may differ for all of us also because we all came in at different points in time. We came in with different backgrounds, but I'm saying like ballpark. Do you think that's something that you guys?
I'm okay talking about
Cool.
it.
I'll go first. It's cool.
Yeah.
I think the larger agencies that I've worked with, the average salary for a absolutely like brand new fresher artist manager when I joined, and this was 2018, was about 40,000 rupees. Okay, on average. This is I'm talking the largest agencies that I knew of at the time. Does anyone wanna
Yeah, I was.
ratify?
+1. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have like, okay, if you have 1 year, if you gain 1 year of experience,
Yeah.
it might go up to 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's about it. I think
Yeah.
the maximum, even after 2-3 years of experience, it can be 70 to 80.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I'm correct me if I'm
I
wrong.
think 2-3 years, I would say 60, 70. Yeah. I wouldn't even
I
say
actually
80.
think it's worse now.
Now.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
Because I've worked at what would be touted as a successful agency, and their starting salaries for a lot of people were in the 20s.
No way, really?
Yeah, and those may be for like social media positions or ancillary positions, but at the same time, cost of living is cost of living, you know.
For sure.
So currently, I think that the average for someone who's just starting out in the industry is between 30 to 35.
Yeah.
But then the bigger agencies also have that many clients.
And that many verticals
Yeah.
of business.
Not really. The bigger agencies have investors.
Also that.
Correct.
Also
Yeah.
that. But I'm saying like, I mean, I don't know if there's an argument to be made for underpaying to that substantial amount, just from the sense that, like she said, there's so many other revenue sources that are coming. We'll come to that in a second.
Yeah.
That with the larger agencies, the inflow of revenue is actually very high. So even if you have a larger number of employees, I don't know if 30,000 is fair. I should shut up now.
No, I was paid 30 when I joined. And then I think 1 month in, I also kind of took on the social media kind of role. So it escalated to 50. And then eventually I made my way up to 1, which was, I think, very, very, very good.
Yeah.
I was very proud of it in
We're very
1.5
proud of you
years.
also. Yeah. Okay,
But, yeah.
interesting. So we've established that we're not currently at optimal pay salary for a lot of younger managers, but growth can be faster and more exponential if you make the most of opportunities that are provided.
Yeah, for sure.
Fair.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. While we've taken this deviation on pay scales, I want to circle back to both of you as well. And we were talking about the roadblocks that you faced when you were starting out. Pay is obviously one of them because it's not, like you said, the most structured. But are there other things that you sort of faced when you were starting out that made you do a double take? I really want to answer this question. I really want.
I don't think I've ever spoken about this though anywhere. But I mean, even if it was an artist like Ritviz, thankfully we were managing him and it was a little easier when you compare it with emerging artists. But even managing Ritviz, obviously you're getting so many incoming queries are coming in and you're doing the work, you're doing everything correctly. From what I've seen is, whenever I'm at a show, anything live, I see a lot of difference how vendors talk to you and how would they talk to a male artist manager. Now, I I can be wrong, please correct me, but मैंने तो ये बहुत देखा है. Now for that, I had to be that stubborn and get things done. And, I came across maybe as arrogant. But I had to do that to get the job done. There was no other way. And pyar se, nobody was listening to me. So then this was the only way that it could have happened. Now, obviously with Ritviz, I think it also depends on different artists. When you compare, there was a point where we had a promoter and there were 2 of our artists. And Ritviz got paid earlier and Dorwin didn't. So my problem is also that third parties, are you always going to give more importance to the bigger art act? Until how long? Why can't you just close the payments on the payment terms? एक एक 2 महीने पे नहीं आ रहे. So my blocks were mostly these bigger things. Smaller things, I think I just took it on me and I just made it work because there was nobody to listen also, obviously. And even if there was somebody to listen to, you can't make any change. You just have to be on ground. You have to constantly be there to show them that this is the girl. This is a new... एक तो people were also like, this is a new girl. ये कौन है? ये कहाँ से आ गई? Industry में तो है ही नहीं है. I was not from OML. So everybody know OML people only with each other. Everything started with OML, yaar. Whatever. Yeah, exactly. So I think people were also like a little taken aback. So I just had to do the work, which I did by hook or crook. And it ended up doing well for me at least.
No, but I'm glad you're talking about this because I know we've had this conversation while you were at UTR, obviously. I joke about it now of saying that I think I've developed mannerisms of a man.
Yeah.
Like 100%. I don't know because I don't think being ladylike has served me in this industry at all, right? Like inevitably, whether I'm
And I've been in organizations where obviously that was called out differently before I joined. I didn't know much about that culture when I came in. It wasn't like that prima facie. Like, it wasn't like it was so open and like like everyone on the surface of it was making a huge effort to not come across as the boys club equivalent of it, right? So I was like, yeah, cool. But then, like you said, you walk into festivals and you walk into clubs and you walk into like even boardrooms sometimes, and I think that eventually I don't know how to have this conversation anymore without sounding like a ranting feminist, right? And I think yeah, like, no, I'm serious. Like, I think even now when I talk about it, I feel apologetic of saying it almost, because I'm like, I don't want to come across as like somebody who's using the feminism argument.
But it is that. And it's also to your point, and I didn't mean to cut you, but it's like the thing that you're talking about, I would say developing aggression as a mechanism to get your work done, and then not feeling ladylike, or you're really not in touch with yourself a lot of times. All of my other friends, my undergrad friends or whatever, who are in different industries, have also experienced this. And it's an India problem. It's not just our industry. Sure. In our industry, we end up working with a lot of vendors. So it's even more in our face, because you're going to a tier 2 city, you're going to a tier 1 city. Everyone's coming from different backgrounds. They're reacting to you in different languages. They're reacting to you in different settings. And that makes it worse. But this idea of being successful at work and losing yourself as a woman is more of an India problem than it is just an industry problem. Because I did not experience it in New York. I could get my work done by being nice to people.
Yeah, but like a lot of these issues don't come up the same way, right? There are so many other aspects to that, but a lot of these are very specific to the societal conditioning here. I mean, I've seen it like we went to a very small town for Christmas, and there was a show, and literally it was in an army camp, okay? And before the show, they said you have to go show your face and you have to meet the director of the club or this, that, whatever. So we've gone and we're sitting in a room like this, and there's some guy in front at the desk, and he's meeting people, and he's supposed to come meet us. And in the meantime, like, this guy comes to ask for chai, coffee, goes around a room of like 6 people, asks everyone what they want except me.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like, kya lenge? Green tea? Theek hai. Okay. Skips me, goes to the next person, says, kya lenge? And just assumes that I'll have whatever everyone's having, right? And I was like, whatever, cool. And then this guy gets up, who's like senior and whatever, and this is such like basic thing, but he won't look me in the eye or shake my hand. So he's gone tuck, skip, literally, like, and I was like, but of course, like you said, for them, it's also a thing of contact, right? Like, they're more, it's not only about disrespectful, it's also in like a lot of tier 2 cities, you don't actually make physical contact with women who you don't know. There is also that in a lot of communities.
I mean, sure, tier 1 boys do this all the time, and they're Gen Z. So there's no excuse for that. This is like an India problem.
Also, just like hold your hands if you don't want to touch me.
Yeah.
Just like greet me, acknowledge me.
Saying hello and acknowledging my presence is just that.
For sure.
You're meeting me in a professional setting. Don't get up in your head about it. And if you are, it's a you problem. Like, let's be clear.
100%.
Stop you're being apologetic for them for some reason. I don't get it.
No, and this is what, like, you're saying, I don't want to sound like a ranting feminist. And I think this is something that I actually feel so often. But if it's the reality of our situation, why should we not talk about it? I mean, every man will go and talk about how their balls itch. And we can't talk about, like, how being a woman is inconvenient at times. It's bloody inconvenient, and talk about it.
Have you guys faced that? Like, how often do you think you face that from counterparts at other companies? Like, vendors is one aspect of
all
it,
the
right?
time.
Because in what way?
They would ice you out. They would invite your junior managers to events and not invite you just because. And there's no reason for it. So to your point about not taking it personally, initially I used to take it personally. I was like, maybe I'm going into a room and doing something wrong or whatever, right? Till I realized that every time I met someone random in a professional setting, they would always say that this other person who I thought was icing me out or whatever was saying nice things about me to them. And I'm just like, okay, so you want to say nice things, but you're unable to give these basic things that I consider respect in a room. So you're either just awkward, right? Or you simply cannot acknowledge me as your peer, but at this point my work is undeniable, so you have to say kaam to acha hai, but I don't want to socially hang, you know. And it is what it is at this point. But the best way to combat it is that the people you immediately surround yourself with have to be your biggest advocates. In my case, luckily, my artists have been supportive and they've been open to having this dialogue. And for example, like, great shout out to Raga. He's surrounded by people who he's known for longer than I have, and they just pick up the phone and say, "Oh, isse nahi baat karenge, Raga bhai, aap deal kar do." And he's had to spend a lot of time saying, "Not gonna do it. You have to talk to her. I don't know about this. You have to talk to her.
Yeah.
I don't know my schedule. Talk to her." You know. And shout out to him for doing that.
For sure.
And
yeah.
sometimes you feel bad because you know that your male counterparts are not having to be in the situation where their managers constantly having to say, "Nahi, aap usse baat kar lo." But if it's getting your work done, now I'm just like, my job is to get the work done. If it's easier for you to talk to this other guy, still my brain being used. Talk to the other guy, get my work done, get me paid. I don't have to be friends with you.
Yeah, no, for sure. Is that how you would approach it as well?
See, I
देखो बात सुन लो.
it depends on my mood, okay, and how many times you've done it.
Yeah.
How many times you've done it, okay? Like, if one person, and I'm not naming, but there are so many, you know, there are so many of them, especially, but again, like you said, with my roster, they are fantastic, man. Like, there will be so many people who will call up Bullseye on a daily, be like, you know, bro, let's do this. And Bully will always kind of encourage that conversation, but eventually redirect it to me because, you know, as an artist also, you want to be approachable and you want to be, you know, on good terms with all promoters. Otherwise, you're too arrogant. But you also want to respect your manager, which, like, huge shout out to my entire roster. They're so good with it. But there are some times where I kind of, you know, let it slide. There are some times where I'll pick up the phone and tell the promoter, like, listen, how many times do I need to tell you to talk to me? You know, it's not that difficult. I had to do it twice today. Because sometimes they're just friends, but they don't mean it. But then there are certain times where I'm just like, forget it, I don't want to talk to this person. I don't want to commission from this. Like, I don't want to entertain this person's money even. And I really take it very personally, which I should stop doing because all money is good money. Yeah. But
If you don't take their money, they don't get your show.
correct.
So they don't make more money.
Correct.
But I guess
So
I mean,
all money is
okay,
not good money.
That's interesting though, and I want to talk about this for 1 second.
Yeah.
Because there are two sides to that coin also.
Yes.
Right? Like, eventually the biggest argument in the landscape today is the fact that the volume of artists versus even the live business now, right? Like, we went through a boom post-pandemic. Yes, everybody was getting booked because everybody wanted a party. Great. Now, if you look at bookings today, season can still be great, but like, it's not the same volume of tickets that are being sold that were being sold in like 22, even early 23, right?
Yeah.
So the market will not be able to sustain that for a very long time.
Yeah.
Right? So then your direct competition is immediate and it's only growing. So is all money not good money in that case? Because they can just go to the next artist and say, hey, you don't want my business. Someone else does. Then, I mean, by turning down someone you don't like working with, and if that's the general tone of the industry, how do you continue to scale?
Yeah, no, I feel like there are like 3 kind of aspects to it. One is that, okay, you've taken this personally and you've just taken it on your ego and then let that go, which I think is silly. Because personal should never come into your artist's, you know, between your artist's career. Second is, okay, I don't want to work with somebody because I know it's not going to actually help my artist in any way. And, you know, it's just going to be like the ROI is not really worth the headache that it's going to cause me. And the third one is I know I'm never getting this money. So why to work? They will never pay me. They never pay on time. So why to work? So right now there are these three. Like one is like, okay, I really want to work with this venue. Great. We'll do everything, like you said, make the calls, do what you need to do. And then there are like certain things where you're like, oh, I want to work with them. Like not a bad opportunity. Khali date hai. Let's do it. But depends on, like I will tell my artists sometimes, when they come to me with an inquiry and they say, oh, this one is inquired. And if I've had a previously bad experience with maybe another artist, I think it's my 100% responsibility to inform them that, listen, still owes me money or has owed me money in the past, has been a really big headache to work. I'm happy to do this for you. But if it doesn't come, don't be surprised, to give that kind of warning. Of course, like competition will always exist and there will always be somebody that they can go to next. But how long can you avoid us for? I mean, you will want, I have 10, you'll want one of the 10 at least sometimes.
Exactly. That's
Like, at least.
At least.
Shredded that sentence a lot. Yeah. Okay, no, fair. I mean, I think, but then again, this is volume. This is the game of scale, right? Of saying, or volume rather, of saying, okay, the larger agencies can do this. If I'm an independent manager and I have one artist, two artists, can I still pull the same metrics? I'm saying, think of this from the perspective of somebody who's actually getting into management today and says, hey, I'm a female manager, let's say, because that's kind of also the underlying assumption here, dealing with what I'm dealing with. I want to say no to something. But let's say and this is only grown in terms of independent managers coming into the circuit, right? One artist, two artists. Yeah. You can do that because you have 10 today. You can do that because you have 100 today. You can do that. But if I have one, am I then theoretically ignorable?
Well, to that, it's basically what she said. You have to go through the motions of building your career. And I promise men are going through it too. Like as she said, right? When there's a Darwin pitted against a Ritviz, you don't control the third person's reaction. And whether you're a man or a woman, the reaction is going to be the same. I will disrespect who I consider the smaller artist. That's a standard in the industry. So for the lack of better words, you have to eat shit while you have to eat shit. And then there comes a point where you don't have to. When you've put in the work, you've reached that point, and then you're at that point where ek na ek artist to aapko chahiye na roster pe.
Let's look at this from the lens of a younger artist. Let's say you don't have a Ritviz or a... Oh, no. Okay, let's say you don't have a heavyweight on your roster. Okay, you have a younger artist. What are the things that you guys keep in mind when trying to develop somebody who's like, let's say, small to mid-level artist, when you're trying to leverage certain spaces in the industry or trying to like create that niche or space for your artist? How do you approach the whole 360 of it, right? Let's say brand building, or like what are the things that you really want to keep in mind to ensure that they are treated fairly?
I think, I don't know, maybe this is something on my mind because I was seeing Priyanka's reel today, Priyanka Khimani's reel today, and she was like talking about how you just have to make yourself indispensable. So if you are, for example, a young and upcoming artist, can I take an example actually? I would take prime example Parallel Voices on my roster.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
By the way.
Thank you. Hi, Aditya. So found him through the Anjana Deep network, and he had already had a few releases, but he was a producer at the time when I found him, and he was not currently at the time a DJ. And I'd made that, and my team actually, I would really like to congratulate my team on this because they've done so much of the heavy lifting in actually making him who he is today. But everything is so, and I think that's where psychology really comes into it, because you have to really look at that artist not as someone who's building it, but as someone who wants to consume it. how will I want to see this artist? And as somebody who likes music in that sphere, how will I want to consume him as an overall persona? So it's like, okay, what are you wearing to your shows? How are you interacting with your fans? Social media, of course, huge part today. Every little detail. So when you offer yourself as an artist to the public, and when you are signed by a management, and I don't mean a booking agent, but an artist manager, you have to be very ready to kind of give up at least 90% control of how you are perceived and take enough feedback to be able to grow. If you already come into the picture saying ki ab main bada hoon and I am like big enough and whatever I'm doing is working, then I hope it works.
Not with me.
I hope it works, but don't blame me then when you come down. Yeah, so I think paying attention to the smallest things that you would never think needed attention has been really interesting. But luckily, I will say, like, besides Parallel, on my roster, they all came pretty made to me, and my job was to just kind of keep them going. And you have to be participative. A lot of young artists, I get DMs on a very regular basis saying, will you manage me? Will you manage me? And I want to ask them, like, why do you want to be managed? What do you think you will get out of it? Like, I genuinely want to understand. You think management happens and then, tadam, you're done.
Yeah.
Sure.
Of course.
Or is that ittu bittu chit paduta? It doesn't work like that. But you have to like work very collaboratively. You have to be very, very, very involved. Like day and night, I think you should get after your manager's life and say, sorry, don't. But I mean, I would want that. Like I would want somebody to be very, very into their career and as excited about their career as they want me to be. If you are not giving me your 100%, why the hell will I put in my 100%? Sit in a corner. I'll also enjoy my weekends. Like I want an artist who's like sitting at home on a free weekend and is very anxious about the fact that he's sitting at home on a weekend. Like, why am I not touring? What is wrong? Let's work on it. Don't blame me for it, but let's see what we can do to make it work.
Yeah, okay. I want to understand from you a little bit. I love how Ishita is just laughing before I even asked anything. She has no idea what the question is going to be. But obviously, these are more independent frameworks, right? And we'll come to Ranyaka's aspect of it as well. Within the framework of a larger agency, I feel like a Bharani can still go to somebody and say, hey, maybe the feedback loop should exist in a certain manner where she can say, if you're not actually listening to me on certain things, hold up 1 second, then let's reevaluate, right? How much control do you have on the way that a larger roster is playing up, right? And I feel like, is it that younger artists are more receptive and older artists are more like set in their ways of it? Because you've also obviously entered an existing framework. Are you able to build the same kind of feedback loops with your artists and be like, hey, listen, this is collaboration, not client relationship,
With younger artists, for sure. Because, see, it's a label, right? You have a little more structured teams. There is something for marketing, there's something for streaming. It's easier. Obviously, sometimes if an artist is not 360 degree with us and they have their own independent management companies, their manager speaks to us and we give a certain kind of feedback to them also if there is something, of course. But not to take away from the fact that bigger artists also, they really want to understand how the streaming market is also going. Like you can see your streams and charts, etc. But we are having those conversations with the distributors or a Spotify or an Apple. We know what's actually happening. So while the management can come and they can be the face of the artist, which we're very happy with, obviously, because what a label wants to also do is build that relationship with an artist management company as well, because the company will always have different artists, and we are genuinely looking for newer, unique sounds. Like Warner has invested in regional music. We're pretty much working in Punjabi side of things as well. So a lot of new things are coming out for sure. And from what I see, it's my experience at Under the Radar and compared to this obviously differs, because you have some sort of support here, right? If you have a younger act, your marketing can help you push your song, or your editorial relationship with Spotify, etc., can help you do that. We used to do that. We used to send emails to everybody at Spotify, Apple. We both of us have done this for a younger act at Under the Radar, and they used to help us too. So whatever in a younger artist management company that we have done, the same thing is also happening in a label. That's what I was also trying to explain in our other conversation also, that it's just at a larger level because it's more structured. So the aim is the same. Abhi, how it will work around is something that obviously needs a conversation, and it needs to be collaborative.
In your experience in that case, right? Like, we're talking a little bit of two different things in the sense of internal and external as well, right? Internal, then between divisions, and then external, right? What has your process been like, and what is your evaluation of what it's been like to deal with third-party external people in the industry from the perspective of raising a young artist, right? Do you feel like the industry has been increasingly supportive of it, or do you think there are certain things that may not work when you're starting to build younger artists? And this is obviously given that you've worked across things, right? Now you have the consulting aspect of it, but you've also worked at other firms where you have raised younger artists who are obviously now fairly prominent. But what is your evaluation of that initial 0 to 1? How easy or tough has that been for you?
I think it's a game of patience. I wouldn't say that it's been tough. Yes, there's a lot of moving parts, but I started off doing that. I started off with 0 to 1 and scaled that, right? And then with Raga, it's been more of someone else had done some of the 0 to 1 work. They'd kind of, he'd gone into a hiatus, and then I had to do the comebacks. I've done a little bit of both. Comebacks are tougher to orchestrate, but for a younger artist, I think right now, if you want to fortify your position as a younger artist, you have to be undeniable, which is put your music out yourself. Well, you have a team, you don't have a team, doesn't matter. The internet is available, the world is your oyster. Please go do your research. It's really easy to do it. Sure, not everyone's going to be good at everything, but put your music out there, do the A/B testing, and then start going to people to get a stake in your business. Because if you don't know who you are and what you're building, the other person cannot help you. And I have learned now with some of the successes that I've had that may not be with me anymore, is that your vision cannot be bigger than the artist. Your vision cannot be drastically different than the artist. If there is an idea that the artist has not explored, you can't go and show it to them, right? If they want to remain in a certain ecosystem, they're going to remain in that ecosystem. So I don't think it's tough. I think it's a game of patience. You find the right ones. If you believe in their art, everything else can fall into place through a collaborative process. And when it comes to being received by third parties, I truly believe that everyone comes around when it's undeniable. If I fortified my position, I have a ticket-buying audience. And while there are a lot of artists, there are very few artists who are very good live. There are very few artists that the audience is repeatedly turning up for. My aim is that everyone on my roster, whether it's a small roster or big roster, is someone that everyone will undeniably turn up for. Our tagline is undeniably good.
I love that. And also very, very important. Okay, let's break this down a little bit more, okay? Somebody who's starting out in artist management in 2025, your top 3 things that you want them to know about where we are at today. Or top 3 things that they like skill sets that they should have, or something that they should know about becoming a manager in 2025. Who wants to go first?
Can I say 5?
You can say 7.
Serious, I'll say 10. No, I think first and foremost, I don't know if you guys struggle with this, but it's not about drinking. It's not about partying. It's not glamorous. It's not fun. It's fun, but it's hell. Secondly, you are not going to become a good manager just because you're a DJ yourself. Like, this is like, I think I have a rule that I won't let anybody who's a DJ themselves become an employee of mine. But yeah, thirdly, I think what you said, patience. Just be very, very patient and don't get disheartened because, male, female aside, the industry does take a very, I feel like, longer time than most industries to kind of warm up to new people. Unless you're iska beta, uska chacha, this, that, come from another company that you've come from, it's very difficult for them. For example, if I hire somebody today, and if I say, okay, you are the sole manager for Parallel Voices, for the first 6 months, the inquiries will still come to me.
Yeah.
And then they will come to, and a lot of artist managers get really disheartened saying, oh, why do they only listen to the boss? Why don't they listen to me?
Shout out.
So,
Yeah, but it's also the bosses who don't know when they have to teach the other person
Correct.
to go to who they have
correct.
to go to.
I mean,
Correct.
I think it's a bit of both.
It's a bit of both.
right? Like, I
It's
think,
definitely
yeah.
a bit of both. But I think there's like a time limit to it. Like, you can be kind of ignored, but if you're constantly being ignored, then it's also definitely
Yeah.
something to do with the management style.
Yeah.
And I agree with that completely. And then, very important. I feel like a lot of artist managers that come into the industry don't take this as seriously as a 9-to-5 job. Especially with my company, I have one employee in Shillong, one employee in Bangalore. I don't do a work from office model. I can't afford it yet. But just sit yourself down, take this job as seriously as you would any other job. And I think you can really use the discipline and escalate and upskill yourself to a level where you then thereby become undefeatable, disputable, undeniable, all of the above. Yeah. And lastly, always be your artist's biggest cheerleader. Like, always, even if they're being hell annoying, like, which will happen, of course. You're in a relationship, literally. So you will have a lot of tiffs and you will have things that will irk you, but never kind of let that go outside of you or outside your team. Always advocate for your artists.
Okay, I think, thank you. That was very comprehensive. Aranika, Ishita, would you like to add your things that you wish you had known when you were 22 equivalent?
Okay, I genuinely think you should not manage artists that you're fans of. I don't know if it's controversial or not, but I don't think it ever will, unless and until it'll only be bickering after a while, I feel. I can be wrong, of course. Another thing
I met
is,
someone recently who I was like in love with, and I was like, nahi milna chahiye
you
tha.
should not meet your idols, yeah. You should genuinely not meet your idols.
I've stopped listening to a lot of Indian music like this.
Second, me too. Yeah. Second thing is, if just strategize and be with you also have to push your artist to come to ask them to think. Yeah, you also have to think about your vision. If you want to do it together, we can do it together as well. But अगर आपके पास ही कुछ नहीं है, तो मैं क्या करूँ यहाँ पे आके? I think I just want to tell these two things. Everything else is, I think you've pretty much covered it. Patience and calmness is absolutely the key.
So I think we've stressed upon the most in this podcast.
Yeah.
And you can't do without it. Aranika?
I have just two to add to what everyone said. One is recognizing that more things are outside of your locus of control and you can just put your head down and do the work and things will fall into place, right? And most people now call that manifesting. But you know what? It's been in the scriptures and the only way to keep yourself sane for the past 10,000 years, whether you were in agriculture or whether you're in artist management. That's how it works. And then The second thing is upskill yourself. And by that, I mean functional knowledge of your industry. You are not a commodity trader when you're working in a creative industry. There are creative solutions to all your problems. And please go read the law. I really want artist managers to realize that Law 101 is going to make you better at business because you know the value of exactly what you're trading. If even artist managers who are currently at the same level of experience or more level of experience than me have no idea about publishing, have no idea about what they're signing away, and then they're collaborating with 10,000 artists because in streaming you have to collaborate with 10,000 artists, but they don't know what they've signed away, so they can't give it to you either. So please just go read about it. It's actually not that complicated. The internet has Venn diagrams, flow charts, visual representations, everything you want. You don't have to be an academic. I know everything from a Law 101 class, which was not a very good class, but it was easy, just take a class.
To add to that, sorry, I really want to say this. To add to that,
I was just going to say, you made Ishta's whole day. Like, it's just like, the minute you said publishing, Ishta's eyes like,
it's fine, you don't understand legal language, but ChatGPT is your friend, guys. It will break it down for you so easily. They have so many more options. Excel sheet banana, deck banana, email ढंग से लिखना. I mean, you learn eventually, obviously, all of those things. But right now, you have options that can actually do it for you. And then you can learn from that. So it's much more easier comparatively to 5 years ago. Because ChatGPT just came in like last year.
I would want to say to that point though, I think that using it as a tool to... No, in the sense, I feel like when you're learning, and this might be... I don't think a lot of people I've met are looking at it like this right now because it's easy to like ask it to write your emails for you. And this is such an unrelated note. But I think like what we started encouraging at the company also is write it first. Ask it to make it better. Learn from the betterment of it. Because when I ask it to just write it for me, one, obviously language is being attuned and it's not necessarily as personal, but you will never learn, right? So tomorrow, if the servers crash and you need to write an email and it's still shit 5 years into your industry, it means nothing, right? Like I've seen a lot of senior people still write really like whatever emails, and I'm like,
but don't people do that already? They only give one-liner instructions.
so a lot of people are doing it like that, which is the only thing I was trying to like also clarify here. Like a lot of people will take the email that, let's say you send me an email, take your email, put it in ChatGPT, be like, respond to this email. And then let's say I need to change like amount or date or whatever. I'll just do that and send back to you. I have not learned how to write an email to you. All I've done is someone else has written that email for you, right? It's the equivalent of...
I think it's like driving before Google Maps and driving after Google Maps.
By hook or crook, just learn how to write an email, friends. Just do that, please.
Yeah. And no double question marks at follow-up.
Yeah.
You come across as a moron.
Especially on Sundays.
Also,
Especially on Sundays.
your whole email does not need to be in your subject.
Yes.
This is my biggest fan.
Yes.
Okay.
And when someone manages multiple artists, please mention which artist you're booking. I want to book you. Me? I'll come.
Guys, but we've gone somewhere else now. We have gone to... Now my next line is, but tell me your budget.
Okay, on that very happy note, as we sign off on this very entertaining podcast for me, I want to just also leave behind a feeling of, I feel like we've addressed the harder parts of this. And I think that's important because the idea is for people to have like a realer picture of the industry that they're walking into. But while we have done that, can we also all take a minute to talk about why we still keep doing what we do and what it is about the industry that we've sort of, come to appreciate as well. It's not all bad, I promise. But yeah.
I'll go last this time. You will start.
For me, I think thankfully, I also had a time where I was burnt out for sure. And I took that break. So if you are burnt out, please take that break. But for me, I'm doing this still because of the inspiring artists that I'm always around. There are. I thankfully would touch. We have had great artists in the past also and in present as well. So I think they are themselves working on their own art so much that it automatically inspires me for sure. And passion for music, yeah. It'll never go. Whatever role I'm in, if I'm shifting or not, I would always want to be surrounded by music, that is very innate in me. I'm assuming all of y'all as well. Simple.
Okay. Ranyaka?
I think at some point, for the lack of better words, music saved me. And I think we've heard that a lot. But as a kid, I had to spend a lot of time by myself or whatever. And books and music were my refuge. As a teenager, music was my refuge. And I was singing all my life. So when I look at the amount of people that we can impact when we're working on anything. And I know a lot of people think that, in hip hop it's just raging, but guess what? So was metal at some point, and now it's hip hop. But I'm digressing. But essentially, you're kind of reaching out to so many people. You're helping them cope in whatever way possible, whether it's a rage outlet or whether it's them coping with love and loss. And I love being a part of that. If nothing else, I love being a part of someone having fun. And you're coming to a show, they're dancing, you're dancing. It's a moment of joy and space that you're creating, and that's always a good feeling.
That's always such a beautiful moment though, right? Like I think one of my favorite things to witness is from stage when you see lights come on, like flashlights. It's one thing to be in the audience and watch it, but like when you see it from this side, it's so surreal. I don't think that feeling's ever gone anywhere for me. Like no matter how many concerts you run, just so many people in that moment all experiencing the same thing, and you get to you have this weird fisheye kind of view of what's happening, and it's so gorgeous. Beautiful. Okay.
I think everything that you guys said, but also it's my calling, it's my purpose. I am married to it. You don't abandon a marriage, no matter how hard it gets.
That is another podcast.
No, but it's I don't see myself doing anything different at this point in life. And the struggle is worth it. The end result makes it worth it.
Okay. Okay, awesome. I think we've covered. Ishita, why don't you ask the question?
Let's ask it to Meher, yeah. Okay. Wait, guys, hold on.
Exiting the chat.
Should it be on a pause? No, she'll ask us pretty difficult questions.
Ask, guys. At least I won't put up a facade.
Which is the worst brand that you've had to work with?
Nice lipsticks.
Which is the worst artist that you had to work with? Can you add? You will add this in, right?
Can you just
You have to.
I'll answer this if all of you answer this.
yeah.
ये कोई
Okay,
बात
we
नहीं
don't
है.
have to name names.
Yeah.
We can describe.
I'm going to tell you the best and the worst. And I think this is important because, no, I'll tell you, because honestly, I think, just sidebar also, but I feel like I don't want people to only see that side of it. And I think we don't talk about the best enough. Like you said, even with Raga or your artist, right? Making that space for you. I think I have to say, I think my favorite artist to have managed in life, and this name I can take very happily, are two people actually. But I think my first artists were Rohan and Ashish. Rohan Joshi, Ashish Agya. And I've told them this endlessly, and I don't think I can say it enough, but they were the first people that were ever assigned to me individually. And similar, right? Like they made space for me in every way. Rohan was 36, I was 21, and it was hilarious because he'd be like, I have to teach you how to cross the road. But then he'd also be like listening to everything I had to say with the same kind of, respect, despite the fact that he'd been in the industry for so much longer than I had. He didn't have to do it. Right? Like he didn't have to take my opinion at that point. He didn't have to give me that same time and effort, but he did. And Ashish, if he calls you on a Sunday, he will apologize. And I was like, I love you, not because I wanted him to, but I was like, okay, I'm allowed to have a Sunday, you know, because up until that moment where he called me and he said, "Hey, I know it's a Sunday. I'm so sorry. Like, do you have a minute?" I was like, "Whoa,
Yes, sir.
I can say no. Like, what is this?" You know, or if he was calling you like at 11 o'clock at night, there was recognition of the idea that you are human, you have a life. Just because I'm making money through you and you're like this conduit to my business does not mean I own you. You know, like that. When you're young and you're like, we can all say this today standing here, but like when you're 21 and you're in a big agency, it was like, am I even allowed to sort of have that space? Rohan has given me like free reign to cancel shows with promoters that were not great people. And he looked at me and he's like, "You want to cancel it? I don't even need to know. Call it off. Come and tell me, hey, listen, not happening." I will not ask that question, which is a lot, right? Because you're shutting down like lakhs of business, essentially. Worst artist I've ever managed. I think is the flip of that. It was somebody who would only call me at 11:30 at night because that was convenient for him. It was somebody who would never really make space for perspectives and the idea of like looking at management as a collaboration and not as, you do what I say you do. Like, I think that in the same context, right, especially when you're younger, you don't know boundaries the same way. So I guess I didn't know that at 11 o'clock I could be like, "Sorry, boss, I'm out. Like, I have to be up and be in office at 8 a.m. tomorrow, so no scene." But he would only call me at like 11:30, 12 because he was busy during the day. And I was like, so am I guess? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and I think both of those experiences happened so early in my life that then you know what you want from the people you work with. You know, like you're like, this is my hard stop. This is where, like, this is the amount of bullshit I will take. This is the amount of bullshit I will not take anymore. And I can say that now, right? But yeah, that's my best and worst.
Me or we'll go to her first? I'll because you want to go last. Just because you want to go last.
Of course.
Honestly, I've had all my artists were good.
Hey, cancel.
No. Best. Ritvist, obviously.
Shout out to Ritvist.
Bro, the way we were with each other, the friendship that we had, I think
Yeah.
we still have. Sorry, not had. But that that guy just made me feel very comfortable. He's just like, I got you and I know you got me. It was very, ऐसा बोलने की ज़रूरत भी नहीं थी. Right now at Warner, I manage an act called Karma. Fuck, I did not expect an artist like him. It's like I'm seeing a mirror and that person is obviously much more talented than I am. But he just gets it. He just gets everything. He's with me. I am with him. You are so lucky. We're so lucky if we meet the right artists. For sure. Worst, guys, genuinely worst nahi hai. But
Bring her off this podcast.
okay,
उसको right किया है?
an artist,
यार कुछ मसाला ही
Someone who
नहीं
left a
दिया.
bad taste in your mouth.
I'll give you. I'll tell you that. A bad taste in my mouth was this guy. Not UTR. Just FYI. But this guy is just flaky as fuck. I'm just like, you can't make up your head. And this another lady who can't make up her head, taking me for a toll constantly, putting their emotional traumas on me, making me listen to 2-3 hours of conversations, and not actually talking about the things that we are wanting to talk about. And then just ghosting. So why are we doing this? We don't need to do this. We're mature adults. I mean, at least I am.
अगर मैंने guess कर लिया तो
You have guessed it. You have guessed it.
Just whisper it.
Come close to the mic.
Okay.
Yeah, these were 2-3 people who did the same thing. So
Cameras अभी करते हैं उनको जानते हैं. Okay, last but not the least.
Well, Raga is obviously, the best artist I work with. I'm also actually quite appreciative of all of the other artists on my current roster for similar reasons. They're all the reason that we exist together is because personalities match too, and everyone's talented in their own ways, but they're all nice people. None of them are out to take you for a ride, which is great. And none of them are so full of
Shout
themselves that they'll stop working one day. So that's also great. Those are my metrics. In
OTW.
terms of,
Yes,
yes.
yes,
That is
ma'am.
what they all do, by the way.
Yes.
No, this is how we do it though, OTW. That's what DOS started. He'd be like, why aren't you drinking on a Friday
Don't
night?
do
It's
that.
OTW.
OTW.
OTW. Cool. But no, and it's not someone I've ever managed, but I've worked with a lot of artists in different capacities through 3 or 4 organizations. But the worst, I've got 2 who did similar things, which is they were unclear about their careers, and every piece of content they were making could easily be pinned down to what the inspiration was. And it wasn't a direct copy, but like you could tell where it was coming from. And they hadn't landed a solid song for themselves in a long time. And we were trying to work on, okay, how can you do this better? But their entire occurred was affiliation to someone who'd already made it. And their entire concentration was on looking a certain way, being seen at the right parties, drinking at all of these parties, and then coming back and doing whatever this other artist was doing or a version of it. And then shouting at the rest of the team and trying to call them incompetent. So yeah,
So we shouldn't try and guess.
after the cameras roll, you may try and guess.
Okay.
Miss Ma'am.
Miss Ma'am.
Miss Ma'am. Okay. Favorite? Like you said,
Bully.
appreciative. No, Bully is my best friend.
Yeah.
Like he's my first drunk video call. It's like anything
We
that's
need
going
another
on.
episode on boundaries and balancing relationships. Continue.
I was reading a book on artist management while Bully was sitting next to me, and it said like this husband thing or like you're married. I said, Bully, we're married to each other. He was like, Bully, stop it. Leave me alone. No, Bully's great. Always very supportive of me. Ankur, Deep
Shout
Brown.
out Deep Brown.
Deep Brown. And like, he's what you said, no, that sorry for calling on a Sundays. Please take your time. You know, if I've messed up, if I say sorry, he'll always be like, I hope you've learned from it. Like, it's okay. Just very calm and supportive, and also calls me time and again for feedback on perhaps things he would know, having worked in the industry himself for so long. So love him. Also very big on the will not reply to a direct inquiry, will ghost that direct inquiry till that person reaches out to me. Like epic one. Worst, like I said, you have to be your artist's biggest cheerleaders. So,
Her turn to be
but no, like everything you guys said about, and I just don't like being talked at. Talk to me, don't talk at me. Don't tell me how I should run my company. Don't tell me, like, give me feedback, open to it, but don't just think that because you are senior or because you have been here the longest that I am somehow the reason for your downfall. Yeah. So I have a few like that, but open communication. I will get there soon.
Okay, so be consumed with your art first, not the ecosystem around necessarily. Be respectful, collaborative, and inclusive. Do not think that you're superior.
And these are all not gender based.
Yeah,
Yes,
100%.
yes,
100%.
yes,
This
100%.
is, yeah, we moved away from that a long time
Yeah.
ago. Yeah.
That's done. That's done. Guys.
That's done. But I think, in essence, just be aware of your surroundings and the people who are in your ecosystem. and be appreciative of what you have as well. While
Yes,
you
gratitude.
Gratitude.
Please.
Want to take therapy? Go for it.
Yeah.
just not from me.
And especially not from me. I
I will-
quit.
I just realized for her it's such a double whammy. Nipsky will be like,
Stop it.
Like 15 minutes in, she's like, no, boundary cross. Like, we gotta,
like a charge double.
500
exactly.
He was, oh shit. Okay, amazing. I definitely think we need a follow-up podcast if we're gonna think. But I think we've covered a lot of ground. And thank you guys so much for
Thank you
making
for
time for this.
having
We know
us.
how we've made
Thank
this
you
episode
for
happen.
having us.
Again, I've never heard Ishita speak at this. But thank you guys, honestly, so much. This has
Thank
been
you.
a very entertaining.
Can we do this, Thorasa? Can you also?
What
You
is that?
gotta look at the camera. You gotta do the.
OTW.
Hey, but I'm on that camera.
So you do it
so
your
yeah.
it's fine.
ODW.
We will do it when Meher
Guys,
says.
very bad. We've all done it.
We'll do it
I
when
don't know why
Meher
this
says Bola.
exists, but it exists. It's a
I
thing
don't know
now.
what it
Hi.
means. Okay, 5, 6, 7, 8.
ODW.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Yes,
Good night.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, great.
If you enjoyed this conversation, like, share, and subscribe to help us bring you more unfiltered creative stories. Got someone in mind for our next guest? Drop your suggestions in the comments and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode.